Joseph had always imagined small towns as quiet, steady places. The kind of setting where a young journalist could learn the craft without the chaos of a city. When he accepted a job at the Grayvale Gazette, a modest weekly paper in the heart of Washington State, it felt like the perfect beginning. No sirens outside his window, no endless deadlines. Just him, a notebook, and a town full of stories waiting to be told. He had been in Grayvale for nearly a week when it first struck him that something was off. That morning was like many others, crisp and calm, with the smell of chimney smoke in the air and golden maple leaves swirling down Main Street. He pushed open the familiar door of Maggie's Cafe, the little brick building with the faded green sign he'd come to visit most mornings since arriving. Inside, it was as warm and welcoming as ever. The scent of cinnamon rolls and dark roast clung to the air. A waitress approached his table. Same woman as before. Tired eyes, polite smile. But as she came up to him, she tilted her head. "Morning," she said. "Haven't seen you around before." Joseph blinked. "Actually, I've been coming in all week. You served me yesterday." She gave a small, uncertain chuckle and poured him coffee anyway. "Sorry, must have slipped my mind. Happens more than you'd think around here." "What does?" "Details, names, faces. People forget things." She shrugged, as if brushing off a bug. "Small town quirk, I guess." She turned to refill the coffee pot. And for a moment, Joseph felt the strangest sensation. Like he was being watched by someone trying to remember a dream they'd already lost. The next day at the Gazette's cramped office, shelves bending under the weight of old issues, the fluorescent light buzzing faintly overhead. Joseph mentioned the encounter to his editor. "Memory problems?" "Sure," the editor chuckled. "Half the folks here can't remember what they had for breakfast. Part of living slow, I guess." But Joseph wasn't convinced. Over the next week, the pattern became impossible to ignore. At the newsstand, the same elderly man asked every time, "Where are you from again, son?" "Seattle," Joseph replied patiently. The next day, the man squinted at him as if seeing him for the first time. "New around here?" "Yes," Joseph said carefully. "I'm Joseph." "Oh, well, welcome." The man smiled, unaware they'd had this exact exchange 2 days in a row. It wasn't just him. The grocery clerk, the postman, strangers on the street. Every interaction felt like a reset. As if the town collectively woke up each morning with a slate wiped clean. Joseph began to wonder if Grayvale had always been this way. One rainy afternoon, he took refuge in the public library, a hushed old building smelling of paper and dust. Flipping through the archives, he stumbled on a yellowed newspaper clipping dated October 12th, 1973. Archaeological excavation near Grayvale uncovers ancient artifacts. He read closely. 50 years ago, near the riverbed, an archaeological team had unearthed dozens of relics, pottery shards, carved stones, tools, and one unusual item, an obsidian amulet. The piece was tied to local tribal legends. But the article mentioned something odd. Rumors that it had effects on those who kept it close. Some said it carried the memories of the dead. Others whispered it could erase the memories of the living. Joseph sat back in his chair, the library's silence pressing in on him. The next morning, he walked to the Grayvale Museum. The museum was small, ivy crawling over its red brick walls. Inside, glass cases displayed the town's history, antique logging tools, black and white photographs, fragments of pottery. Then he saw it, The memory stone, a small, glossy black amulet no bigger than his palm, sitting on a square of faded velvet. Light seemed to die against its surface. A brass plaque read, "The Memory Stone, discovered in 1973 near the Greyvale riverbed. Believed to collect and erase memories." "You're staring at it like it's speaking to you," said a voice behind him. Joseph turned to find the museum curator, a woman in her late 60s with silver-streaked hair and steady, unreadable eyes. "Some say it remembers everything this land has ever seen," she continued. "Others say it feeds on what you know. People don't like to stand near it for long." "Why keep it here at all?" Joseph asked. She gave a small, humorless smile. "Where else would we put it?" That night, Joseph returned to Maggie's cafe. The warm hum of conversation filled the air, but to him, it felt brittle, almost artificial. The waitress spotted him and came over with a polite smile. "Evening? First time here?" Joseph's stomach dropped. "You don't remember me?" She frowned, tilting her head. "Should I?" He stared into her eyes, searching for recognition. There was none. In the days that followed, Joseph's own mind began to falter. He'd forget where he'd put his notes. Names slipped away minutes after learning them. More than once, he walked down a street certain he'd passed the same corner already. One night, a strange thought struck him. What if the townspeople weren't forgetting him? What if they were remembering? But something was making them let go. A week later, unable to shake the pull of the amulet, Joseph returned to the museum after hours. He'd managed to borrow a spare key from the Gazette's archives clerk, who occasionally volunteered at the museum cataloging exhibits. "Just lock up when you're done," the clerk had said, assuming Joseph only needed a closer look for an article. The building was dark, the air heavy with the smell of stone and dust. Moonlight spilled through high windows, faintly illuminating the exhibits. The memory stone waited in its glass case. He stepped closer. The air seemed to thicken, pressing against his chest. The overhead lights flickered once, twice, then steadied in a dim glow. And then came the whisper. It was soft at first, almost like the rustle of leaves. Then it grew, a layered murmur of countless voices speaking at once. "Remember us. Forget yourself." Joseph's heart pounded. The voices coiled around his thoughts, prying them loose, replacing them with flashes of things he didn't recognize, faces he'd never seen, streets that didn't exist. A lifetime of moments that weren't his. He pressed his hand to the cold glass. The whisper swelled to a roar inside his head. The next morning, Joseph didn't arrive at the Gazette. His apartment door was ajar. On the floor lay a single sheet of paper, scrawled in trembling handwriting, "Who am I?" Greyvale went on, as always. The memory stone sat in its case, silent, patient, pulling at the edges of minds until everything familiar dissolved. And somewhere inside the fog of forgotten things, Joseph's story was no longer his own. If this story unsettled you, leave a like and let the shadows know. Subscribe for more tales you shouldn't hear after dark. And if you've seen something you can't explain, tell us in the comments. We're always listening.